already have people on.
You just want to learn.
Yeah, coming to learn.
I am for a second. Shit, here she comes.
Call me.
I can just email it to myself.
Right, but how would you get a Zoom?
Already lost.
Oh, you are.
I just-
So the Zoom is going? Okay. Hey guys, there are donuts up here, coffee. I'm just trying to get the presentation up and going. Who is it that likes the sour cream?
Oh, it's not, I know there's someone else, but.
Yeah, there's, no, I had two, so I was like, I knew one person did, I was like, it's popular. No, not you?
I mean, I'll eat it, I'm not saying I don't like it, but it wasn't me.
I
that
got
pointed it out.
cause I remember last time, I was like, oh, I want this one.
Someone, I think it was in the thing we had last week, where one of the new agents,
You wanted it anyway, cause
but I don't
well,
remember
there's three here, so
who it was.
Emily told me.
Take a photo, come on.
We have none, so
Sure.
that way I can cut one in half.
I know who's interested in us. What brand?
Gee,
Seriously?
I don't like it till you try it, I do too, for so long.
Definitely not gonna.
Yeah. It just adds like a creaminess to it. It's not like, it doesn't mean it's sour.
Sour cream is disgusting. You guys talking about on donuts? Yeah, they did.
On
Not on it, you know, donuts. Yeah, you know. Do a donut days ago. Crispy Kreme, that's not how this shit works. Yeah.
Now I feel like I should try it.
You gotta try it, it's delicious.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure.
Okay, so you like it?
You'll never know, if you would not be able to taste the difference, like you, you'd be like, it's a good donut, you love the flavor.
But I think what is talking about sour cream donuts or not? Like, does that sound weird to you? What? Sour. Donut.
Okay, we're good. Anybody need anything? Hey, Catherine, can you hear us? Can they give us a thumbs up? Jan? Jan?
Took Jay in 5 minutes, 5 years. Yeah.
Oh, Sandy?
I can hear you guys.
Hey, Greg.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the mute button.
Hey, Jan. Thanks for the confirmation, guys.
All right, well, thank you guys for coming to preface. This is me teaching the book, Fanatical Prospecting. This is not me talking down on anybody saying that I'm an unreal prospector. I'm working on it myself, so I'm hoping to learn something through this presentation as well. So bear with me. There's, I mean, we have it built out. There's like a good amount of slides. There's 22 rules and lessons from this book that we go through at the end. Jeb Blount writes about all these things in the book, Fanatical Prospecting. It's an awesome book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it just because it gives a bunch of tips and tricks on how to go about prospecting, you know, picking up new clients, getting over cold call hesitancy and a bunch of other stuff like that, which no matter if you're a real estate agent, if you are a closing attorney, you are a lender, I think everybody in this industry can relate to prospecting and how we all may have some hesitancies. So throughout this, I'll kind of touch on some things. I'm doing bold right now as well for the first time, and I've learned a few things through bold that they've kind of talked that kind of relate to this as well. So I'll kind of go through that, and hopefully you guys will get something out of it. So prospecting, proactively pursuing prospects, fanatical is being motivated or characterized by an extreme, basically an extreme enthusiasm. So this is all about being enthusiastic and proactive while prospecting with your clients. And so Jeb Blount's cold hard truth is he says that failure in sales is a direct result of, and you got it, a failure to prospect. So throughout the whole book, obviously, Fanatical Prospecting is the title. It is all about prospecting and basically his ways to get over different fears, to be creative in prospecting and to not come across as your everyday real estate agent, lender, or closing attorney that may be calling on, these individuals who are buying homes, because you are not going to be the only one to call these people. So he goes through a few ways to be creative about it. So consistent top producers have learned and are disciplined to prospect effectively and consistently. The big question today is, are you an effective and consistent prospector? And I think that your goals and your effectiveness of hitting your goals and or your overall volume can be traced back to if you are a prospector and if you are doing prospecting correctly. Because I know from my own personal experience starting off in the industry, when I started to get some traction and some momentum and got some people to work with, I thought it was just going to be consistent because I had done, my due diligence for 6 or 12 months, and it really just never stops, because once I stop prospecting for 30 to 60 days, the next 30, 60, 90 days are when those results will turn up. So I realized that no matter how many contracts I have in hand today, I still need to prospect, whether that be with alliance partners, consumers, my friends, or just agents in the office. So I think we'll get into the 30, 60, 90 stuff in a little bit. That's one of the big things that I've learned early on in my career in real estate. If you're not a consistent or an effective prospector, your mission today is not necessarily to master everything you hear, but to find a few key takeaways that you can pursue. So I would say if there are 2, 3, 4, 5 things you can pick up from the presentation, again, from the book that I'm just recapping, I think it would be great, because I'm trying to take one of these things each week and build on it instead of just trying to do all 22 lessons at once. I think if you pick one, master it, and then go on to the next one, that is the best way to go about it from my own personal experience. Fanatical prospectors do not make excuses or blame. I think it's really easy, especially with the interest rates. You could just say, well, I'm doing everything I can, but these interest rates are causing these buyers not to want to work with me, and therefore that is why I don't have any business. Whine or complain, again, the interest rates are a big factor. I hear a lot of people talking about them. People still need to buy a house if they are having kids, if they get a divorce, if they get married, if they move for a job, if they're trying to get into a school district for their child. There are still reasons out there that people are going to move. So you just need to go find them, and you can find them by prospecting. If you have a negative mindset, I would say that's probably the biggest killer of anybody I've met in this industry, is having a negative mindset about things. If you have an abundant mindset, I think that attracts people, which will then attract clients. And then looking for an easy way out. I mean, I think that this whole PowerPoint really just goes back to the common theme that you have to do the work to get the results. I think a lot of people, especially with social media nowadays, are looking for the easy way out, or the quick fix, or being able to buy leads that are going to 100% turn out for you, which in the end, we all know that that's not necessarily true. A lot of people want the workout routine that's going to be 90 days to get your dream shape, while it's going to take the rest of your life to keep that. So I think that a lot of these fanatical prospecting do's and don'ts that he names in the book can also be related to life, which I think is a great lesson to learn. And then living in fear, we're not in control of anything that happens. We talked about it this morning on the market update call. The bank that went under in Silicon Valley on Friday, there's nothing we can do about that. That's people that are in a position to make decisions that we have no say on, making the wrong decisions, which actually turns out to positively impact mortgage rates. So that helped us today, even though I don't necessarily like to see that headline coming through on Friday. And then procrastinating, we all procrastinate. I definitely do sometimes as well. It's easy to say I'll do it tomorrow. I've learned that there's another book that we read through our leadership and development program. It's called Eat the Frog, which is just you need to do the worst things in the morning. And a lot of the time, I think prospecting is one of the things that I don't like doing the most. So if I wake up and it's do my morning routine, and then I'm ready for work, and I start making calls right at 9 o'clock, it feels really good when you make 10 phone calls and it's 10 o'clock and you're done prospecting for the day. So I try to do the hard things in the morning so I don't procrastinate. And then worrying about things that we can't control, again, there's no reason for that. And I think that just adds unneeded stress in your life and any prospecting calls that you may have. And these are the things that they do, take personal responsibility. Again, I think this is not just for prospecting, but for everyday life. They approach it with focus, enthusiasm, and perseverance, embrace hard work and take action, learn to handle rejection, which I know we've all been rejected a time or two, whether it's in business, your personal life, or anything in between. And then focusing their energy on only things that they control, like your actions, reactions, and mindset. That's just one thing that I try to focus on is you can always control how many phone calls that you make. You cannot control how they respond to your phone calls as much as you want to and try to. I mean, I've had calls where I thought it went really, really well. People hung up on me, and then I've had calls that I thought went terrible and I ended up closing the deal. So it just really, really depends on the person on the other line. Now you can control how you go about the phone call and obviously what it says, actions, reactions, and mindset. But you can never control what they're going to do on the other side of the phone. So I try not to take it too personally because it is a business decision for the most part. And the best salespeople prospects when times are good because they know that a rainy day is right around the corner, which I think we can all attest to. We may be in sort of a rainy day time period right now with a lot of the different factors going on, even though things are looking up. And then when times are bad, because they know it's the key to survival. I mean, that's pretty basic. If you don't have any leads and you don't have any deals that are closing, you're probably going to want to prospect and pick up the phone. And then when they don't feel like it, because they're driven to keep their pipeline full, this is the one that I struggle with the most, and I'm sure everyone else that's listening or in the room struggles with. There's a lot of times that we don't want to do it, and it'd be easier to procrastinate and do it tomorrow. I've learned that, whether eating the frog, doing it first thing in the morning, or just doing it when you don't feel like it, ends up really giving you some positive momentum for the next day. So this has been big for me as well. And then there's 7 core prospecting mindsets that they talk about in the book. This is one where we went over this as a company and they kind of, pointed out certain people that were in these 7 categories. So I'm sure you guys can read these or hear them and think of somebody either in the office or that you work with that is one of these mindsets. So optimistically enthusiastic, viewing each day as a fresh opportunity, competitively determined, hardwired to win and do whatever it takes to stay on top, positively confident, having a resilient mental toughness and expecting to win, relentlessly persistent is doing whatever it takes and never giving up, and thirsty for knowledge is always looking to learn, very coachable person, and welcomes feedback from everyone. Systematically efficient is squeezing every moment out of every day and then tuning out distractions and interruptions. I wish I was more systematically efficient with that being said. And then adaptively flexible is situationally aware, constantly trying new things. So I'm sure you guys can all think about these 7 things and put yourself in one of the categories or several of the categories, but my goal is to try to be in as many of the categories as I can by continuing to read and learn and listen to podcasts and other people talk about what they're doing that's successful, because one of the things that we always talk about is there's a blueprint to success. Like if you read Millionaire Real Estate Agent, they literally outline exactly what you have to do to be a millionaire real estate agent. So I think if you just did all those things, and that's easy to say out loud because it's tough and it's a lot of things to do, but if you put the systems in place to prospect and have all the leverage that they talk about throughout the book, it's real. There's a blueprint and they wrote a book exactly how to do it. You just have to go take that book and implement it and do it. Now that's a lot easier said than done, but there is a blueprint for it. So, and then which one are you? I like to, kind of think for a second on which one I am. I'll go back a slide so you guys can look at these one more time.
Almost a couple of. I got a Mississippi education. Could you go back to it?
And I can send this PowerPoint out to everybody afterwards if you need. I would say these are all the positive prospecting mindsets, because there are definitely more than these 7 and they're all negative. So I would say this is one of the 7 you should probably want to be a part of.
Yeah.
So I guess we left that out. All right, well, here we go. Here's the mindsets that work against you. So the procrastinator, putting things off, fools yourself with lies and promises. I know this is huge for not only myself, but I think everyone can relate to this, whether it be, physical fitness, relationship based, family based, knowledge based, or if it's business and prospecting. Everyone's procrastinated a time or two. I think that having a positive trigger to you not procrastinating is perfect. Like for myself, if I don't want to make the phone call, but I go ahead and make the phone calls anyway, I'll reward myself by saying I can, go hit golf balls or go out to dinner, whatever the case may be. It's something small, but I always try to give a positive trigger to something that I don't want to do, but I do it anyway. And then the truth is, you can have the discipline to prospect some each day. I think this is really important because this is one of the things during bold prospecting is not necessarily always picking up the phone and calling people. I'm not a huge fan of calling people. I do it, and I try to do it with enthusiasm so people want to hear me call them and talk to them on the phone. However, I prefer to just go to somebody's business and speak to them in person. So they talked about in bold going to, a coffee shop that's maybe a local coffee shop and doing a video with them and putting out the video on your social media and saying, hey, if you ever want coffee, you should come into this coffee shop. Well, if you do that video for free for someone and you're not looking for anything in return, who do you think they're going to refer a client to if they walk in and they hear them talking about real estate or buying a home? You're going to be the first person on the top of their mind. So even though it's not actively prospecting and cold calling someone on the phone, I think that, subliminally prospecting like that can give big returns if you do have great relationships with people and you don't just do it once and you consistently follow up. I've seen a lot of the agents that I see on social media that do a lot of business all have vendor partners that are not in the real estate world. Because I know we all have vendor partners that are in this industry, and it's great to have that, but there are also a ton of people working for their time and attention. So I think it's great to have outside sources that will refer you business as well. The perfectionist, over preparing out of fear of failure. She works so hard to get everything ready and then doesn't actually do anything at all. I think we can all relate to this as well. Trying to get everything in order. But one of the key things they talk about in the book is messy success is far better than perfect mediocrity. And I would say perfect mediocrity would be having everything prepared and having an awesome script and never utilizing your script. So it's great if we can sit here and Jaime and I can go over the script back and forth like we do in bold, but if you don't ever do it, it doesn't really need much. So just implementing it. And one thing that I've learned too is through bold, they talk about, script practice and doing all these things with your partner. I think it's better to just call people and just have script practice. Like if you mess up on a call and somebody doesn't work with you, that's fine. Just move on and go to the next person. And I think that's how I've learned is just not being afraid to pick up the phone and dial it, no matter who it is. And if I mess up, then I mess up and go to the next person. And if I do a good job, then I'll write that person down on my list to call them again and just kind of go from there. Because I would say that, if you make 1,000 phone calls, the chances of you getting 10 clients are going to be way better than you making 50 phone calls trying to be perfect to get 10 clients. Because being able to churn out, 1% of 1,000 calls is going to be way easier than 20% of 50 calls. So that's just kind of how I've been working on my business. And then paralysis from analysis. This is kind of like, just overthinking your phone calls well before they happen. So this is another thing that I was thinking about, going through bold is, so I'm a lender and my job is to call on real estate agents as well as the consumers to try to get business and referrals from agents by doing a good job with them and their clients. Well, as agents, you guys are calling on the consumers and we both have the same cold call hesitancy, but it kind of just got through my head. Why am I worried to cold call an agent when an agent has to cold call the consumer? The consumer that you're cold calling, they have to cold call for their job. And I think that a lot of people, understand and they've come from a space where they've had to cold call because a lot of these people that you are calling on have probably gone through some form of, soliciting their business to someone and especially if they're in the sales industry. So I think that that's really helped me get over the what ifs, is just realizing and putting myself in somebody else's shoes, and realizing that they're probably going through the same thing that you're going through. And when someone calls you, if you call somebody and they answer the phone, they purposely answer the phone. So, when they pick up, sometimes people get hesitant and it's like, oh my goodness, now I don't know what to say. If they pick up the phone, they purposely want to talk to you. So I think that mindset is really a good perspective shift. And then, I think it is great when people answer the phone and you're asking them for their perspective, or you're asking them for something. I think that those people appreciate that, and that if you shift away from the what ifs, it will greatly impact your cold calling or prospecting. And because the human mind hates the unknown and tries to convince you that bad things are going to happen. So if you just go ahead and do it, it is what it is. It's going to happen. Some of the calls are going to be the best ever, some are going to be the worst ever, and some will be right in between. So it's really just how you go about those. And the truth is, the bad things are not going to happen, and you are going to make more money if you make more calls. I think if everybody just read that every morning, they'd be like, all right, I'll just make more calls. The 30-day rule is kind of what we talked about. So the prospecting that you do, I kind of look at it in reverse. So if we sit as of today, your production this month is going to be a direct result of the phone calls and the prospecting you did 98 days ago, and then 60 days ago, and 30 days ago. And those results are going to show up in the next 30, 60, and 90 days. So if you are, having a little bit of a slump in March, or if April doesn't look great right now, I would say it's probably because of the prospecting that you did in December, January, and February. So if you miss a day of prospecting, it will eventually show up in your results. I believe we'll get into this in a little bit, but I think that breaking down the prospecting is a great way to do it. If you have to make 100 phone calls in a week, I don't think you should have one day to make 100 phone calls. That's really overwhelming. If you break it down and just make 20 phone calls Monday, 20 Tuesday, all the way through the week, and you just do 20 each weekday, that makes the big 100 calls broken down into day increments. It makes it a lot more feasible, doable, and it's a lot less overwhelming when you get to sit there and make 20 phone calls instead of 100. And in the book, it states that 90% of sales slumps can be linked to a failure to prospect. So when you're slumping, the most important thing you can do is prospect. So take action, which is just pick up the phone and dial. When you're slumping, start prospecting. And, I think that this is really true down here in the book. It kind of talks about when you prospect consistently, it's amazing how things fall into place and you experience lucky streaks. So, calling a ton of people and prospecting, you might have a few deals, in line, and then you might have someone just randomly call you and say, hey, I got referred to you from this person or that person. And they haven't told them that you called and did a good job. And then they just refer you to that person. So sometimes making that one extra phone call could result in multiple deals, which I think is another thing you can speak to yourself to make that extra phone call. And if you want to sustain success in your sales career, then you'll have to learn to interrupt prospects. I think this is what a lot of people struggle with. Like I mentioned, if somebody answers the phone and you're calling them during the day, they picked up on purpose. If you call someone that's busy and they can't answer the phone, they're just going to send you a voicemail, or shoot you a text and say, call me later. And I think this is hard because, well, the book states this is hard because it's difficult, it's awkward, may lead to anxiety and hesitation, over planning and agony. I think this is where, like, scripts for me personally, I don't think that they work very well for myself, because I think it's too robotic. So if I just call someone to have a conversation, it's a lot easier for me than having the first line that I have to read off the paper and then reacting to what they have to say. I think it's a lot easier to just have a genuine conversation with someone and react, not off of a piece of paper, but how you actually feel. It allows you to be way more connected in the conversation as well. And I think people can read through that on the phone and do respect and appreciate it when you're actually interested in talking to them, instead of just reading off of a piece of paper. I've heard plenty of different things on script. If they work for you, that's great. I just personally don't think they work for me. And I haven't heard anyone really preach that you can, go away from scripts and be successful. So it's all about the script, especially in bold. They love their scripts. So
Well, I think part of it becomes memory. It becomes inherent.
yes. Well, like with the repetition and, you know, calling people and having similar conversations day in and day out, it becomes that you just can memorize a script
Right.
and different phrases that you may say to multiple different people, but you can react to what they have to say with your different phrases instead of being like, oh my goodness, they just asked me a question that I wasn't aware of. I don't have an answer written down for that. Because then that's not a great way to pick up a prospect, in my opinion. So, desperate or confident, this kind of gets into the script stuff too. So you don't want to be the desperate or needy salesperson. So I try to always, when I'm calling someone, to make sure that it's 100% their decision. I'm not trying to be pushy on them. His prospect can sense desperation in your actions, tone of voice, words, and body language. Again, this is something that I'm trying to get better at, being more confident, talking on the phone, which just happens over, you know, repetition. It happens to everybody. Some calls are, you know, scary, some are not. So they run from salespeople who act needy or desperate to those who are confident. So I think that just having that tone of voice, you know, knowing that you know what you're talking about, and then it also comes back to, you know, reading books like this and being knowledgeable about the industry, going to, you know, classes, which I appreciate you guys tuning into this one, and hopefully this will help you be more confident as well. So time to learn, there were 22 quick lessons throughout the book to be a better prospector. So you guys can write it down and share some lessons that impacted you the most at the end. If you would like, I can also send the PowerPoint to everybody in the room or on Zoom if you guys want it once we're done. So you guys don't have to write everything down. But lesson one is to know your numbers. It's been big since I came to Shelter. Previously, beforehand, I didn't know any of my numbers. You know, I knew the only numbers I knew were how much money I made because I looked at my W-2. You know, I didn't know what the volume was. I didn't know how many applications I needed to get certain amounts of closings. So I didn't know how many phone calls I needed to make to get that many applications, to get that many closings, to get that much volume, to hit my goals. So it's really a chain effect. And if you kind of backtrack, if you have an X amount volume goal and you back it down into I need to close this many deals to reach this amount of volume, so I need this many prospects or this many listing appointments, then you can back that into how many phone calls you need to make per week to get that number. And that's why I think Keller Williams is awesome. Shelter kind of mirrors some of our thoughts with Keller Williams. 36 touch is amazing. You know, I think Sam and Lucy do a great job. I wish, honestly, I had that 36 touch. So, you know, it's less phone calls, just like making sure you're in front of your database, and that's prospecting. So as much as it doesn't seem like it is, if you're in somebody's inbox 3 times a month, or talking to them, you know, going to lunch, whatever that is, that's still prospecting. So I would utilize that. Everyone, I recommend utilizing it. Because elite salespeople know their numbers and track everything, including their prospecting calls. So this is something that my coach taught me, actually. I have a, you know, spreadsheet and tracker of everyone that I talk to throughout a week. So, you know, if I have a conversation and Jaime calls me about a client, his name is on the spreadsheet, and I'm writing down what we spoke about, not because I'm not going to remember what we spoke about, but because I have so many conversations that are regarding the same things on a day-to-day basis. I have to keep track of what I'm talking to people about. So then not only do I know exactly what we're talking about, I have notes on our clients. If he has questions and I'm not at my computer, I have an Excel spreadsheet that is typed out that states our last conversation, what clients we're working with, what's going on with that. You know, Tony wants to film a video tomorrow. So we talked last week about filming a video, wrote that down, you know, making sure that I'm time blocking and scheduling that out, and then letting myself know that I talked to Tony on Friday, we're going to film a video on Tuesday, and make sure that I'm keeping and following up with them as well. So without tracking activity, salespeople make less calls than they think they had. This goes back to procrastinating and stuff, and you can always talk yourself into thinking you made more phone calls than you did. And then number 2, I think this is a very important lesson, is time blocking. So I'm going to plug myself as well. I printed all those planners that I made.
I'm just with a look for one. Okay.
Yeah. So I printed like 100 of the planners. I've sold, I think, 65 or 70 of them. So I have 30 of them left. It has a full 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. schedule for you to time block. Has an area to put your 3 most important goals for the day and some other things. So if anybody's interested, I'll have them at team meeting tomorrow. More than happy to help you, you know, time block and get you one. It's really helped myself and Brian with Diamond Endeavors help me make it. So it's all in-house. So with that being said, lesson 2 is time blocking. Elite salespeople organize their day into distinct blocks of time dedicated to specific activities. I think this is really important because if you say I'm gonna time block from 10 to 11, you can just turn your phone on airplane mode, not let anybody bother you. I guess you gotta have your phone on, not airplane mode to call people, so that's pretty dumb, but, put your phone on do not disturb so people can't bother you. Make sure people know, maybe that's your one time of the week, you make, 50 phone calls every Tuesday from 12 to 2, so everybody knows that's your time block. Put it on your calendar, you put it, on your voicemail, don't call me from this time, you do an automatic, return email if it's important, and make sure that you're making those phone calls. Because if you can just knock out a bunch of those calls in a time block period, I think that it's gonna be way easier than if you make one call, then you go check your email, make another call, check your email. It's easy to get distracted and then not actually follow through with what you said you're gonna do. Prep before you call. I think this is really important, especially if you guys are calling, people for listing appointments or maybe buyers. Like I would do some research and, almost be a little bit of a detective, maybe check them out on Facebook. If they have young kids, maybe they're moving because they have young kids. Well, if someone has young kids and you have young kids, what a great talking point. There's a ways to relate to these people that doesn't come across as weird. And you don't have to call them and say your wife has wearing such a pretty shirt in your profile picture on Facebook. You can do a little due diligence and research on people and try to know more about them than they think you do before you start talking, because you can lead the conversation that way. One of the big things I do, if I see that someone went to Alabama, I always try to steer them into talking about college or something, because I went there so I can relate to it. Or if they went to college in the SEC, maybe I make a comment about Alabama because I know they went to Auburn, and they're going to say something that sparks a conversation that they're going to remember. So it's all about, making sure you speak where people can relate to it, and then obviously remember and recognize you when you call. And then, like I said, just remove all distractions. And there's the eating the frog term right there. So don't mess with the time block. Our work contracts in the fit the time out allotted, so we can get more done in less time when we treat time blocks as sacred commitments. Do you guys believe that this is true?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say my biggest, example of this would be cleaning the house. If you give yourself 2 hours to clean the house to do a party that night, it's probably gonna get done in 2 hours, regardless of what it takes. If you give yourself 2 weeks, you're probably gonna let it take 2 weeks and do a little bit at a time. So same thing with calls, contracts, meetings with clients. It depends on your time blocks and, what time you have out allotted to doing the thing. So I think that it's very important to build your schedule around sort of the important things that you need to do. Stop doing busy work that keeps you from not prospecting. I think this is huge, especially in our industry. There's so many things you can do that look like it's work, but it's not necessarily work. It's kind of busy work. Like, I can go on the internet and post updates on the mortgage rates all day. That doesn't do anything for me. Nobody's calling me because I gave them a good update at 12 o'clock that the mortgage rates have changed. So as awesome as that is, and as great as that information may be, for some people, it's not going to give me any more business. So, there are things that I think a lot of people may do day to day that don't necessarily help bring in prospects, but they do waste a lot of time. So I'm working on trying to cut those things out of my day as well. Setting call objectives. That was tough, yeah. Just before you call, have a plan, have a goal for the phone call. If it's a, potential buyer, maybe have a goal of setting a meeting with them, and then go through the process of how you're going to set that meeting before you call them. Or if it's a potential listing appointment or a for sale by owner, maybe your goal is to get an appointment with them to, give your listing presentation to try to get a listing for them. I don't know what the goal is, but I would have one for each phone call, instead of just going ahead and, just winging it and calling people just to call them. But I also would recommend calling people just to call them if they're your friends or in your referral network. I know a lot of agents that get a ton of business by just keeping great relationships with family and friends and past clients. Just do it. I think this is the hardest part for a lot of people, is just going ahead and making the calls. It's tough. I have been there, and I think a lot of people can relate. How many people have had a contact up on their phone, ready to hit dial, and you made every excuse why not to call that person, and then you go ahead and then somebody texts you, oh my goodness, I gotta take care of this, and then you never call them. I've done that plenty of times. I work on trying not to do that, but I know we all have those times. And that's why that eating the frog quote, just doing it first thing in the morning, because it feels so much better. You have less stress, you know, you're very relieved that you did that. And I think that it's best to just get it done first thing in the morning. Closing the sale. Now, this is something that we can all obviously work on, because I don't think any of us have 100% conversion rate. If you do, please call me, because I'd love to sit down with you and copy exactly what you're doing. Quickly get past the initial reflex response. Ask 1 to 2 questions. I think something that's very important in this industry, which I've been trying to work on myself, and you know, I've read in several books, is speaking to listen. So when you ask questions to people, like actually ask questions that you want to hear the answer to, and when you are listening to these people, give them the chance to speak, listen to what they have to say, make sure that you are understanding what they have to say, and then ask follow-up questions that allow them to continue to speak on what they're talking about. Because, another book that I've read is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the biggest thing that they talk about in that book is that people do not care about what you have to say. They want to talk about themselves. So, as morbid as that may sound, they really don't care what you have going on. They want to answer the question about what they have going on. So if you give them that opportunity, that actually makes people like you more than you speaking about yourself, trying to get them to like you. So I think that that's one of the big things I've learned from calling people is, if you are receptive to what they have to say, they're going to like you a lot more than if you try to talk them into liking you over the phone. Getting an agreement to go deeper. So this is like tie downs, asking those questions. Like, this is a great PowerPoint so far, isn't it? Like allowing them to answer the question before you can go forward. And then problem solve. I think this is a big one. There's a lot of objections in the real estate industry. They don't want to sell. Maybe they don't want to buy because interest rates. Maybe they don't. There's so many different things you can problem solve around. So if you do ask these leading questions that allow you to learn more about them, it's going to give you a better opportunity and probability to close the deal with them if you know more. I would say if you're competing with someone as a buyer's agent or a listing agent, I think the person who's going to win the deal 99% of the time is the person who asks the best questions and learns how to help that client the most. Because if you just go in and you tell them what you can do and you don't relate it to anything that they need or what they're thinking, it's not going to go as well as if you ask them leading questions and you tailor your PowerPoint presentation to them to help them. And then close, obviously the most important. Very quick time frame, so this does happen very quickly, but the good thing is it happens so quickly that you can do it a ton of times a day or a ton of times a week, and it's not the end all be all if you do not close every sale. Not all of us are gonna have 50% conversion rate. If you do, congratulations, that's awesome. But we can all work to try and get there, because it's really gonna be more like a 10, 15, 20% conversion rate. I think is probably a really good conversion rate if you are making the amount of calls that they're saying that you need to make. Owning your database. Fanatical prospectors make detailed notes after each call using important tools. So this is kind of what I was talking about. Whenever I call somebody on the phone, I make sure to detail what I spoke about, what I left them a voicemail, follow-up call about a client, or scheduling a lunch or a meeting. I think it's very important to know what you spoke about, so you don't call that person and say the same thing that you said to them last week, because that would be probably a tough way to close the deal. Asking for the business. I think a lot of us struggle with this. It's another thing I'm working on myself. This is the most important part, because if you don't ask for the business and there's no opportunity for them to just answer that question, people are beating around the bush with passive statements like, oh, that'd be great if you did this, or I would love if you sent that client my way. I think that asking for the business and saying that referrals are a big part of my network and my business is a great way to get the referrals. And I also think that people are probably hesitant because they think it's pushy. I don't really think it's necessarily pushy. It's just, hey, this is my occupation and how I feed my family. It'd be really great if you can help me out with it. You guys regularly ask for the business? Not really. Because one thing I'm working on doing as well is with all the agents that I work with and close a deal with every 3 months. So we're going to do the A to Z method with the calls. So another thing my coach taught me is that's their bold is, so every week you can call 2 letters of the alphabet, which would get them all done in 13 weeks. And so if you do that, then that's touching your database over the phone once a quarter. So I was going to call every past deal that closed starting in, what's the next one, April, asking for referrals for the agent that I worked with on that deal, because a lot of the times, you know, business is being referred to us from the agents. It'd be very nice for me to go out of my way to call and give the agent back the deal. So, you know, same thing with you guys calling, you know, different clients. It works in a different way, but, you know, calling them saying, hey, love working with you. You know, I'd love for you to send anybody my way that you know is gonna be buying a home soon, because it would greatly impact me and my business. It's really small, and I don't think it's too pushy, and I think that that would definitely help convert more leads and get more sales for all of us. So learn to assertively, confidently, directly, quickly, and concisely ask for the business, and then shut up and give them room to answer. This is what I struggle with, is asking for the business and then rambling on instead of just biting my tongue, because it's like a sort of an awkward situation. Hey, can I have the business? And then you're like, because of this, this, and that. I'm trying to just be quiet and let them answer the question, even if there's, you know, 5 seconds of some awkward silence. Just let them have the floor and answer the question. Because I think that it's important to note, if you do, you know, keep talking or talk yourself in circles, it's easy for them to escape the question. So if you just leave it flat out and you say, you know, is there anybody that I can help with that you know, real estate, instead of rambling on and saying, this is that, the other, you just give them the floor, they kind of have to answer yes or no. Speak in public regularly. This is something obviously that I'm trying to do in my monthly mortgage matters classes. Speaking in public creates an opportunity to showcase your knowledge, gain visibility, and earn credibility. You become a minor celebrity where prospects seek you out. I don't know if we're there yet, but that would be great. That'd be great if that were the case. But yeah, I think that, you know, talking at different seminars, or doing home buyer seminars and posting about it on social media definitely looks, not necessarily looks, because it is, but you are, you know, providing knowledge to your database and to different referral networks. And if you do go speak at different events, I think it's a great way to set yourself apart and get more business. Build familiarity. You know, when people think about you and talk about you, hopefully they say, you know, he, she is a, you know, real estate agent. That's the first thing that comes to mind when people think about you. So I think that providing, you know, good knowledge and information to people about the industry, making sure that you're in front of them, you know, on a weekly, monthly basis, and making sure when you're calling them that they know what you do for a living, is going to be a great help to your prospecting. Yeah, and then just persistent, consistent daily prospecting across multiple lines. So whether that be wearing a shirt that says realtor, that's prospecting when you wear it out in public. You know, calling people, sharing stuff on social media, posting videos on social media, you know, doing first-time home buyer seminars, all those things are considered prospecting. Using social media, so it's a great way, like I said, to learn about your customers before you even meet them, or meet with them. It's the most important tech advancement for sales since the phone, and it is critical that it becomes a part of your sales arsenal. I think that consistency is huge on social media, making sure that you're just on top of people's timelines, or whether it's their stories that they're watching. You know, like I said, whenever, you know, your name pops to mind, hopefully real estate agent, closing attorney, or lender is what comes to mind. Social selling is not selling. It doesn't involve any pipeline woes. So social selling is not selling and doesn't involve any pipeline woes. Contact and conversion rates from selling will never compare to phone or email. So they're saying social media is a great tool to be top of mind, but you're not necessarily going to close, you know, many deals through social media unless, you know, you have some sort of very interesting way to prospect through social media. If you're just doing the regular post social media or pure content, may or may not convert many leads, but it will be top of mind. And remember that people do not want to be pitched or sold on social media. So I don't think it's necessarily an elevator pitch, but more so, hey, here's information, do with it, you know, as you wish. So the 5 C's of social selling, we'll go through these pretty quickly because you guys have gone to all the social media classes, I'm sure, but connect, content creation, content curation, conversion, and consistency. So, you know, basically just the basics of, you should post, you know, several times a week, share solid information, you know, don't ever do anybody the wrong way, making sure you're leveraging your content, and hopefully if you have good content, others will post it for you or repost it or share it. social media danger, we'll leave that for the social media class, but, now lesson 13 is message matters. Sorry about that. So message matters. Many salespeople lead with cheesy, bad, valueless messages that turn people off. You know, just be yourself, I think, is the best way to sell people, because if you connect with people that truly like you for who you are and you're not being a salesperson, I think that's the best way to keep consistent business coming in. And never say, I would love to have a few minutes of your time to tell you all about me. Like I said, people do not care about you. They want to talk about themselves, and they do not want to be pitched. So if it comes across as salesy, I think that's probably the easiest way to get hung up on. Or ask someone to ask you to not call them again. You know, if you are just being yourself and, you know, talking to them like a human instead of like their, you know, dollar bill, I think it's gonna go a lot farther than if you are calling with your best sales pitch. They resent you interrupting their day to tell them all about you and your products. This is where asking leading question comes in. Hey, how's your day going? You know, I'm Ed, and I want to tell you a little bit about, you know, the real estate market. You know, if you're thinking about selling your home, now might be a great time, because here's what it can do for you, not I'm the best, I can sell this for you, do this, you know, what can I do for you? Because I think one of the big things is too, when you do talk to people, there is the internet and social media, and they do have probably some mutual connections or a referral that has been sent to you. So you don't need to talk yourself up. If you've done a good job with someone else, they're going to speak positively on your behalf, whether it be, you know, a co-op agent or another realtor in the office, or a lender that you work with, or a closing attorney, or if it's a friend of the referral source. They're already going to know about you when you're speaking to them, or they can just do a little bit of digging and figure out who you are and what you do. So you don't even need to tell them about yourself. And then message matters, delivery matters, including the voice tone and your body language. I think it's very important to do all these things like sitting straight, head and chin up, smiling, not necessarily looking like a slob if you're going on an appointment. Think, feel, and act enthusiastically. So just being a positive person, I think definitely helps with sales. And then being clear, transparent, direct, and natural. Like I said, not trying to be salesy or come across as cheesy to someone, I think is very important. Quick and to the point, get to it in 10 seconds or less. I think people, I've read a lot of books that have statistics on people make their decision about you within 5 to 10 seconds when they first speak to you on whether they're going to like you or not. So you better make the first 5 or 10 seconds pretty good. So that is very important. And then if it's in writing, you know, sentence structure, grammar, and punctuation matter. There are plenty of software, you know, and websites that can make sure that your grammar and spelling are correct. Being specific, and then always putting the punctuation mark right after the word and no space. I get a lot of emails with the space mark, space, and then exclamation mark. It's a little bit weird, but this is kind of ticky tacky, but. And then value proposition, always answer their what's in it for me question. So focus on a business objective that impacts their performance that can be measured. So if it's listing appointment, how much money you can get them out of the property, what you can do for them, and then give them a simple, straightforward because. And then while doing this, you can use this as a bridge into a solution to their problem. So stop and think about what their problem is from their perspective. So maybe they have an agent who said that they'll take 2% commission to be the listing agent on their house, but you want 3%, you know, what's in it for me? Well, if you choose that other agent and they sell your home that you want listed at 400 for 375, then you're still not going to get as much money, because if you work with me and you give me your 3% commission and I sell your house for 425, you're still going to net more money. So it's really about how you phrase the conversation, by, you know, giving it what's in it for them and bridging it to why they should work with you. Phone best practices. Phone's a great sales tool, but you need to get their attention by using their name. I mean, I think that whenever you guys speak to somebody, you can tell somebody has been in sales for a while or they're good at their job because they ask you. And Chick-fil-A is a great example of this. You know, hey, welcome to Chick-fil-A, what's your order? Oh, hey, Ashley, that's so great. You know, so Ashley, you want a #1 combo. Would you like any sides with that, Ashley? Yes, yes, I would like some french fries. Oh, well, that's great, Ashley. Would you like any sauce with that? Okay, Ashley, you can pull around and we'll pay for that at the window, Ashley. We'll see you there. And then, you know, you get to the window, hey, is this for Ashley? It's like you've heard your name 6 to 8 times before you leave Chick-fil-A. And I've never heard anybody say they've had a negative experience at Chick-fil-A. So, identify yourself, tell them why you're calling and what you want, give them a because and make it about them, not you. And then ask for what you want and shut up. That's a big one for me, just not rambling and just speaking your piece and then leaving the floor to them to answer the question. Leaving great voicemails, identify yourself. I don't agree with number 2 because everybody has your phone number, so.
Progressive commercial where.
Yeah, so Matt still leaves his phone number for people twice and I was making fun of him for it. So I'm like, they literally have your phone number, so I don't do number 2, but telling them the reason for your call, giving them a reason to call you back. And then number 5, again, I didn't write that. And then keeping the message to 30 seconds or less. You know, no one wants to listen to a 2.5-minute voicemail. Just be quick, clear, concise, to the point, and then kind of leave them thinking about what else you're going to talk about. So if you leave it all in the voicemail, then they might not ever call you back. Starting around RBOs, so rejection, brush offs, and objections. These are gonna happen, so I just think that it's important that you've gone through this plenty of times, making all the phone calls, just so people have a sense of what they're gonna say when there are objections. This is when I think the scripts are important to kind of practice beforehand, but then the repetition and practice of actually doing it is gonna get you better than just going over the scripts. But Keller Williams, again, does a great job. There's a bunch of objections and scripts that they have in KW Connect, I think is what it's called. And I went and looked at them through bold, and then, you know, in the bold booklet, like, I don't even know, if you just have a bold booklet and you've taken bold previously, just go back and read some of those objections, because they do state a lot of the stuff in the book. Arguing with prospects that they're wrong never works. Instead of arguing, learn to disrupt their expectations when they say no. Anchor is making an initial positive statement, and then disrupting is agreeing with or congratulate them. Never say I understand, because it says you aren't listening and don't care. And do reference looking for a good fit. So ask without hesitation and ask confidently. And then, let's see that. Oh yeah, when it doesn't work out, just go on to the next one. Okay, lesson 18 is win over gatekeepers. This may not be, you know, necessarily a thing for you guys in the real estate industry, because you're going to be calling direct to consumers. But if you are calling, you know, an office, or, you know, maybe it's like I was talking about.
It does work in terms of, are you speaking with the decision maker?
That is true, yes. So that's a good point. So there will be important gatekeepers you need to win over. So, you know, maybe you get husband on the phone and wife is the decision maker, or vice versa. It would be a great idea to figure out who is the decision maker when you are on the phone initially, because that allows you to get around any objections that they may have. And sometimes the gatekeeper may not even allow you to talk to the decision maker, because they think that, you know, their objection is correct. If you can get around that, and figure out how to get on the phone with the decision maker, that's going to greatly impact your conversion rate. Effective in-person meetings, I would say that this is the most important thing. I think that when someone speaks to you in person, it's very, very, you know, important. Number one, if someone agrees to meet with you face to face, that means that they're, you know, looking forward to meeting with you, and that there is a possibility that they say yes to whatever proposal you have. There's no one that's going out of their way to meet you in person if they know they're going to tell you no. Unless it's like a friend or family, there may be some instances, but just a prospect that you meet face to face, you have a way better chance of converting them. And like I mentioned before, research as much as you can about them without being weird. Personalized questions for them, or things you can compliment them on. You know, maybe they just had a niece or nephew, or they had a grandchild that they posted on Facebook, saying congratulations about that and caring about their personal life. It's probably going to take you a lot farther than you telling them, you know, what you can do and how good you are in your business. And then make it conversational, not an interrogation. You know, I like asking questions that allow people to ask me similar questions back, to have a, you know, conversation. Obviously, we've all talked to people that you just can't have a conversation with, and everything is yes or no, and it's very dry, and that just happens. But for most people, if you ask them good leading questions and they talk a lot about themselves, in turn, they're going to ask you follow-up questions about yourself, where you can kind of dive into what you can do for them. Do not start selling, pitching, or blabbering about products. I would say this is another thing that I really learned about the industry is people do not really care about the transactional side of things. They want someone that they can trust, that they have a good relationship with. I've learned there's a lot of lenders that can all do the exact same thing. There's a lot of realtors that can do the exact same thing. There's a lot of closing attorneys that can do the exact same thing, but people want to work who they're friends with. So a lot of people can close a loan in 14 days. A lot of people can, do the pre-underwriting, but not a lot of people have as good customer service as we have. But they do have some of the same transactional capabilities, but I would put us ahead of them because of some of our relationship and customer service. I think that means a lot. So being able to speak on that and being able to be a good person and being personable and actually being friends with some of the clients, I think is going to go a long way and a lot farther than you closing in 14 days. Someone that closed a loan a year ago, they're going to say, wow, it was really, really nice to work with Jaime. Not that Jaime, found them a lender that closed in 14 days. That's not really going to be what they remember. Effective email prospecting. I just send out a weekly newsletter with mortgage updates, so I'm in somebody's inbox every Monday. My name pops up. If there's something that goes wrong with one of their deals and they've had a lender that they work with for 10 years and something blows up, hopefully they're going to think of me because my name's in their inbox every single Monday. I'm consistent with it. They know I'm going to send out the email and they know I'll get back with them. So I used to just write a newsletter week of, and I've started to change that to do interesting hook lines for the subjects. People actually click on it instead of just if they see newsletter every week, they may just be like, I'm not opening that anymore. And then don't make the email too long. Don't focus on you and how great you are. And then don't ever misspell words, much less a name. And then be intentional, specific, and get to the point, have compelling opening sentences, and focus on providing value. I think it's all about value. And then texting, obviously going into kind of the younger generation, texting is a huge part. I think it'll be a huge part of the business if it's not already for you. It works best as an integrated part of a larger prospecting system. This is kind of how I follow people who I've talked to on the phone. If we have somebody who's pre-approved and looking, I'm not going to call them every week because they have a job that they have to do. They're not really wanting to talk to me every week. So maybe it's a call, maybe it's a text, maybe it's an email, maybe it's a combination of the three. Texting is just usually preferred for a lot of my clients. So I try to do that as much as possible. We won't really get into the best practices. We're about to wrap up. But here is 22. This is kind of for us from the lending side of things. If we were talking to lenders, but they're trying relationship to stay engaged. We're calling realtors at least once a quarter, if not more, to make sure that they're happy with their business, how they're doing with referrals, and then a few other things. So with all that being said, here it's kind of 21 lessons with a caveat, 22 added in for lenders because this presentation was given to our company as well. But that is Fanatical Prospecting, and thank you all for tuning in. And then I'll give Michael and Gray just a minute to go over some stuff on wherever you guys are talking about.
Well, Hunter, I thought those were all great points. My name is Anna Doherty. I'm operations partner with Michael Gray. And I won't keep up too much of your time. I know there's a lot, y'all went over a lot. But I will say there are two things that really spoke to me is one, the sincerity of what you do. I'm always surprised that sales pitch, and our managing partner, Randy McMichael, was really great at, I'm waiting for that thing that feels really disingenuous, and it's just honest engagement and not too much. And I think, like you said, Hunter, finding common ground. And I think one of the biggest things that I remember starting my practice is I remember having to go out there and get business, and I felt like I didn't know anything. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So how can I engage others to do that? And then as I've gone into my practice, I know a lot of stuff. I just don't find that I have time to do this kind of thing. So I think you can think you're organized, and I considered myself an organized person when I started practicing law 20 years ago. But I realized that I'm not organized in the way I need to be for this business. And I think time blocking and getting yourself an organizational tool that tracks Outlook, if you gotta learn Outlook. I mean, there are so many great tools. I'm a night person. It looks crazy when I send an email at 1 a.m. So guess what? I have time delay emails at appropriate hours. But I know where I'm most productive and then shift it to where my, my client base or the group that I need to get to is. And I think another thing that I see is that, you think you can't do it with the time blocking as far as, for me, I get up, I started my morning work at 6:30 this morning. I know that is my best time to be uninterrupted so that I can get to those things out that I know, or like anybody else will bother me, except maybe Randy, at that time in the morning. And then as I go on in the day, allowing for those, like giving those hours that I know are power hours where I have, closing through, and it's going to be dramatic, they're keep them kind of open-ended. So whatever I'm doing, I have room to answer those questions. I think it's a big thing. Again, you hear some of that stuff and you go, I don't time block, I remember stuff, but having those statistics and Caliber Waves is so good at that, but you incorporating, it really helps you goal set in a way that you don't realize that you're making traction with things, that you'd say, okay, I'm goal setting, and I'm building data that's telling me I'm in the right direction, or I'm not in the right direction. That is so huge, and taking that time to plan for yourself, to be organized. Or somebody told me that years ago, but even then, even if you feel like you've been in that for a while, you definitely should learn it. And I want to say one more, this is a PSA as a closing attorney to realtors, please clear out your voicemail. I can't tell you, I was thinking about voicemails, I've never met a group of people that has a full voicemail box like realtors. It is really important, I think, if you communicate via voicemail, messages, that you do have availability for it. Again, I'm of a generation, I still like to call, like to your point, I have people that they want to change it to text. But if I call somebody and I get a voicemail full, that just turns me off in a way that again, the 5 seconds where I'm like, oh, they just voicemail is full. I have to stop and write a text. So I think that's really important. But I think, again, thinking that you can't time block, thinking that you can't goal set with data, like building data so that you have that information to know, it really helps you. It makes you enthusiastic. It makes you, that persistence. You can actually have statistics that show that it paid off. And I think that's something that you don't realize is so important, but it's critical to feeling, not just being successful, but feeling successful, which I think is a big motivator to continue success. So, thank you so much.
I agree. Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Voicemails?
Sometimes, yeah.
So if anyone wants the PowerPoint, email me, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, we'll have Mickey send it out to everybody, Hunter.
Awesome, thank you guys for
Got lots of people.
I think it depends on who you're dealing with. Because some people do like a voicemail message.
Hey, guys, don't forget, since I have just a few of you here, that we have happy hour Thursday night at Stage. And we're committed to a certain amount of food, and I don't want to eat it all myself, but I will. So do please plan to show up and let us know you're coming, and we'll have good urban then.
Take two for my son's baseball game.
Comes this first, and then you're gonna need a